time now for Coming In Hot with Brent Wallace and former Ottawa Senator Jason York.
Welcome to the show. A guy who reffed 1,546 games, including the Sochi Olympics as well. Dave Jackson, welcome to the show.
Guys, it's always a pleasure.
Jack,
it should have been 1,550 because in the last month of my last season, I got the flu or something, and I missed 4 games. And it would have been a nice number, 1,550. But
yeah,
anyway.
Okay. Well, from now on, we will include that.
Hey, Jax, what's going on? I haven't seen you in a while. Do you age? You look like you're in like some kind of hyperbaric chamber or something. You're looking good, bud.
Ooh, you're awfully you're full of crap actually. But
I'm buttering you up for the show because we got some
lose
hard
about
questions.
25 pounds. I got 2 brand new hips, and my lower back feels like I'm 85. So
yeah, join that. I feel you, man. So does mine.
Do you still skate? Like, do you ever do charity events or anything?
I have not refereed since I retired. I probably never will. I used to do it while I was in the NHL. I would do a charity tournament or something, and you get these beer leaguers that would just they just lose their crap on you, and you'd be like, I'm out here for free. Like, I'm doing it for free beer, and you guys are screaming and yelling at me. Like, what do you do to guys that are just like minor league referees that really don't have a lot of experience? Like, I can see why these guys just quit. But I play hockey twice a week. I try and go up and down. I'm a corridor winger. I don't back check a whole lot. But when I get lucky, I'm on the same line as Milan Hajduk. So I just go to the net with my stick on the ice, and puck finds me.
Wow.
Jax, this kind of amazed me. I got some buddies that are in the business, or young guys who are trying to break through. I give my buddy a shout out, Sean Oliver, my nephew Derek Lowry. So Sean is trying to get in the NHL, and I found this because I never knew this. That I know you guys go to camp, and it's a very rigorous process, like the fitness testing, everything's real tough. But he said you guys actually play a game too, like you scrimmage against each other. And he says the games get nasty. He said 2 guys dropped the gloves this year and went at it. He said it was awesome, but it's just I never knew that part of it.
Well, that's sort of recent. That's since Stephen Walkham took over. He thought, like, instead of going out there and just doing end-to-end boring skating, what better way to skate than you're doing crossovers, you're forward to backward, and all. So he said, bring your hockey equipment to camp. We're going to have all our skating ice sessions will be hockey games. And so you draft like 6 teams and you play 4-on-4. And I tell you what, guys go hard because it's for pride. Like, the blue team won this year, the white team won that year. But like, when I started, I was younger and a pretty good skater. My son's a linesman now, and he's telling me about training camp. I mean, half these guys play pro hockey.
Yeah.
It's a real good pace, and I feel bad for the veterans, the guys in their early 50s. Like, they're just getting blown by. Like, they're like pylons out there. I mean, the younger guys are coming into the room in the morning, the championship game, asking, like, how's your groin? Maybe you might want to sit this one out this morning. It's a big game.
Do you miss? I know this is a facetious question. Do you miss being yelled at?
Some guys take it to heart, and they usually don't make it to the NHL. Once you get to the NHL, you don't, like Yorkie will say, it's like a coach yelling at you. I mean, it's part of the job. It goes in one ear and out the other. It never really bothered me. It only bothered me when I knew I was wrong and they were right. Otherwise, it didn't bother me.
All right,
Jax, I got one more story I want to throw out because this is crazy. I told Wally this story. I played in a charity event 2 weeks ago in Halifax, Jax. So a lot of maritime guys, and as you know, maritime guys, some of the best guys on the planet Earth, but they get a little riled up, right? They get like this guy. You get a little hot under the collar. So it's a charity game, playing raise money for the homeless in Halifax, and one of the guys is getting hooked. So he yells at the ref. He goes, "Come on, call the hooking." So sure enough, there's no slappers allowed in this charity event. Later on, the guy that was chirping the ref scores, and the stick kind of came up waist level, but it was a good goal. The friggin' ref waits till we get to the face-off circle, is about to drop the puck, looks at the guy that chirped him and took the slap shot. He goes, Yeah, that's a penalty for raising your stick. Penalty shot for the other team, and then he just loses his mind on that ref. And I've never seen a guy this happen before. But he threw him out of a charity hockey event for yelling. But talk about a dick move, eh? Like, come on.
Well, you know what? Going back to I play hockey twice a week. We don't have referees, and I know it's going to sound counterintuitive for me to say this, but referees just ruin it when you're playing beer league hockey.
They do.
Because guys don't police themselves. They wait for the referee to police them. They figure, I'm going to get away with as much as I can and be a dick until a referee catches it. Whereas when you're playing with no referees, you can't be a dick. You have to police yourself, and that we've never had an issue.
It's so funny you said that. I will not play in leagues because there's always one guy, usually his girlfriend, sitting in the stands. He's checking the score sheet after, and he's playing for keeps. We all know that guy. It's Wally.
All right. It's not. Listen, I played in a charity event with. Were you not there? This summer.
I heard you guys got smoked.
Well, like I hadn't played in 20 years, and people are like, the other team was all in, and I was like, okay, settle down, guys. Anyway, let's move on to the game. I have questions, and I need some answers.
Okay.
So do I.
I know you guys all know the play. We're going to show you the Tim Stützle play. I don't understand the Shane Pinto one, and you don't have to try and defend it because there's nothing. It's a missed call, and I get it. It happens in a game. But I don't understand particularly this call. However, because I'm contrarian, I can try and defend it because Yorkie is more adamant about it than I am. Can we play the clip, Jake? So as we all know, Stützle gets called for interference there, and the goal doesn't count. Now, I know, Dave, that you're thinking the same thing I am, that that's not a goal. So tell me why he gets a penalty.
Well, you're going to make me look bad because you guys are going to have clickbait on your thing saying I'm agreeing with you, which I'm not. I'm with Yorkie on this one.
Always.
Now, I don't think this is a penalty. I think the fault lies with the defender reaching his stick, not having a good grip on it, and it gets knocked out of his hand. If you look at the different angle, you can see the Ottawa player. He's not even looking at the stick. His focus is on that puck. He's got his head looking at the puck. The puck comes across. He puts his stick down on the ice to give a target for his teammate, and he inadvertently hits the shaft of the guy's stick. Now, as a referee, it's all about sight lines. And I've made calls where I thought I was 100% correct, and I look at it after the game, and I realized that wasn't my strongest call. All I can say on this one, it's probably the sight line. The referee, you can see, is in the corner, right in line with the puck carrier. Mm-hmm. He's focused on the puck carrier as he's going around so he has trust in his partner who's out in the neutral zone. The guy in the neutral zone is probably focused on Stützle because he's a non-puck carrier. The guy down low will be focused on the puck carrier. In case he's hooked, in case he's slashed as he goes wide. Then as he makes the pass, the referee will then he'll follow the puck, the guy down low. And he turns and follows. As he's turning, that's probably the second the stick is being knocked out of the guy's hand.
Yes.
So he doesn't have the context of how did it develop? How did it come about? All he sees is the stick being knocked out of the hand. And overreaction maybe might be the word. But I can sympathize with him because, like I said, if I had a nickel for every time I overreacted in my career, I'd be driving a Mercedes. It's just a terrible feeling especially when you take away a legit goal, and it stays with you. And when you see, I've made calls where after the game, you couldn't convince me I was wrong until I saw the video, and then I went, "Oh man, that's just not how I saw it." From where I was standing, it looked completely different. And they have a reason to be upset, but that's not how I saw it at the time when I made the call. And you lay awake at night, and it keeps you awake, and you just got to move on. You got to move on and say, I'm hopefully not going to make that call again.
So here's my defense of this. One, I think, we sometimes don't give enough credit to how smart players are. And Stützle could have reached back to knock that out, right? He could lift up his stick while the defender has zero strength on it and it flies out of his hand.
Yeah.
But under the rule, interference says one on a player who deliberately knocks a stick out of an opponent's hand or prevents a player who has dropped a stick from. Anyway, all I'm saying is under that is it's a penalty, is it not? He knocks the stick
under that. Yes. If you say you think he deliberately knocked a stick out of his hand, then you're justified making the call. But I think the hockey community at large would see that play and say there was no intent on the Ottawa player's part. You can't be a mind reader. You don't know what he's thinking. I think I know Stephen Walkham always has the adage, what is the better call? Like, you can defend and justify almost anything. It's not black and white. It's not out or safe like baseball. It's a gray area. You can justify anything, but I think what would be the better call in the situation? I don't believe it was deliberate. I think he was simply putting the stick down in the ice in anticipation of getting a pass on a one-timer, and the stick got in the way.
It's so tough, Jax, because NHL players, their brains process situations so fast, so quick. You could almost make a case for Svechnikov with a little bit of embellishment because he's caught totally out of position. He's got a last effort play. He knows it's probably going to be a goal, so he just sticks his stick in there. And I don't know if you saw the reaction after.
He throws his arms up in the air like.
But that's what players do now to sell calls. And he's a really smart player. He's a great player. Like, to me, it's almost, you know what? Maybe if that's not a goal and you're looking to call a penalty, maybe, a little far-fetched, but you could make a case for calling embellishment there on Svechnikov.
It doesn't bring the goal back, though.
No, I'm saying if Stützle didn't score on that, let's say there was a save, and Svechnikov dropped the stick like that and did the thing there, like, it's, you know what, guys in the NHL, they hold their sticks tight. You're talking hold your sticks tight,
and that's what makes it so tough for referees. People say, why don't they call more embellishment? Because now you're trying to get in the guy's head and call him a cheater, and that's a tough thing to do. It's easy to call a penalty when you see a guy get tripped or you see his momentum halted by a hook. You've witnessed that. But when you see a guy fall, you need to then go, oh, I'm saying he's cheating the game. And that's a tougher thing to do because most players don't, and they have a lot of honor. So you've got to be 100% sure before you call an embellishment penalty.
Jax, do you
wait, just one sec on that last play.
Okay, go ahead.
You can't challenge this play if I'm right. Can you?
You cannot.
Yeah.
What could have happened there is, let's say the back referee, I watched the whole play. He didn't have his arm in the air. He didn't, and he would have probably been focused on that play. But he was, he was probably at the red line. If he was 100% adamant, and you'd have to probably involve the linesman here because, you kind of need a super majority if you're going to take away a penalty and award a goal. Yeah. If they'd have got together and the referee making the call had been not 50-50 because he made the call, but he was like, hey guys, did I see that play correctly? And the other three guys go, no, you didn't. Totally was not a penalty. It should be a good goal. The whistle didn't go until the puck was in the net. They could have talked it out over and said, we are going to allow the goal. There's no penalty. But I think when you defer to your partner who's absolutely positive that that's a penalty, and you're not 100% sure it wasn't, what did I like? As a back referee, you might be watching that play, but you're not just focused on two players. You're focused on pretty much everybody but the puck carrier because your partner's focused on the puck carrier. So you're trying to keep 8 players in your line of vision, and all of a sudden the whistle goes and your partner's adamant. You're saying to yourself, "Oh, maybe I missed something." So it's a real tough set of circumstances to go in and overrule your partner.
It's I'm glad you mentioned that, Jack. So I was at the gym today, and everyone's still talking about this. I'm getting phone calls. My buddy Pat, and he said the same thing. He goes, "Can the refs talk about that after and say, you know what? Yeah, it is a goal." So you just said it. It could have been done, right?
Steve Walkham empowers the whole culture with Stephen Walkham is do what you need to do to get the call right on the ice. We're going to be criticized either way. It's tougher to criticize when the call was the right call.
Gotcha. This is what I wanted to ask you. Can you take us a little bit into the heads of officials? I know it's different. Like it was a different culture when I played, and you did the majority of your refereeing. Do you think referees still have, like with certain players? I'll just bring up Stützle for example. Other teams, other fan base will say he's a diver. He does this. He embellishes. Do you think there's a little bit of a book that the referees have a book on certain guys? It's like, I guess what I'm trying to ask you.
I don't think it would be any different than having a book. Referees have a book on everybody. If you've been in the league long enough, the referees know what kind of player you are, and no different than a tough guy, a guy that plays on the edge. The last thing you want to do is pick on him. You have to let him earn his penalties. But all you're going to do is when he's on the ice, your antenna goes up a little more and go, I got to make sure I don't miss something if he does something. And it's no different with a guy who has a reputation of diving. You don't ever want to be the guy that's going to teach him a lesson, because that's not fair to the game. It's not fair to the player. You have to call what happens on the ice. But having said that, your antenna's up, you're aware, and if something happens to that player, you're aware, and you have to make sure that it's legitimately a penalty or isn't a penalty, or it's a dive or isn't a dive. So you take it on a case-by-case basis. Your antenna's up, but you can't prejudge or pick on a player. It's just, it's going to go south on you. You want to be perfect every game. You never are, but you want to be perfect. And you don't want to be a guy that prejudges a play or a player.
Yeah, it's no different than playing. When every time I got on the ice, I had to know who I was playing against. Hey, I'm playing against Gretzky. I got to be aware. I got Tony Twist. Okay, I'm gonna change quickly when he's on the ice. Like you just knew certain guys, and you got to be ready for what. So I guess what you're saying, referees no different.
You get the puck dumped into your corner with a certain player on the ice.
Right.
You got to know you better get there a little. You got to skate a little harder, get there a little quicker, move the puck a little faster, because you know he's going to run you. Yeah. Other players, you look over your shoulder, you go, I've got a little more time.
Exactly.
And it's no different as a referee. You just need to be aware of who's on the ice.
So do you pay any more attention? I'll phrase it this way. There is a rumor, or there's a well thought out thing that refs have books on players. And I have spoken to a few, and I know it sounds ludicrous if you're an official, but is there any way that you guys keep track of players, and someone like a Nick Cousins who's known to be dirty, does he get any more attention when he's on the ice from the officials?
Not any more than what we just Yorkie and I just talked about. It's just an awareness of the players on the ice. And you go back to a player you say, I mean, every fan base has a player on the other team they think is a diver. And there's at least 32 divers in the league according to fan bases, correct?
Yeah. And or dirty, or yes.
Exactly. And if a player that's known as an embellisher goes down, I mean, as we talked about earlier, hockey's not a black and white game. Everything falls into that gray area. So there are calls. Referees have to make calls. Most calls are not 100% obvious calls. Even trips or whatever, I'd say a lot of calls are 75%. Yeah, it's definitely a penalty. Maybe 60-40. But there's calls that are 51-49. Like, Wally, if I asked you, is that a trip? You'd say yes. Yorkie'd say no.
Yeah.
So on a call that's a 49-51, a 50-50 call, maybe the referee might go, I'm not sure. I'm not convinced he totally tripped him, and that player goes down easy. Play on.
So if you can have, by the way, speaking of diving, if a player is called for diving, then should the other player really get a tripping penalty? Shouldn't there just be one or the other?
That's asked to me a lot, but what the referees are trying to do is stop embellishment. So when you see a guy go down the ice and he gets hooked, for example, and his arm gets pulled off the stick, and you can see in the split screen, the referee's arm goes up right away. And as the arm goes off the stick, he does a helicopter and goes down. Yeah, I think you should call both players. You acknowledge the hook, and you tell the player getting embellishment that, listen, if you had eyes in the back of your head like I do, you would have seen my arm in the air. You didn't need to helicopter through the air and take an embellishment penalty. Tripping's a little different because you're either tripped or you're not. But if you're tripped and go down and your feet actually go vertical and you launch yourself, you're probably going to get an embellishment penalty, because our goal is to eliminate embellishment. It makes it too hard for the referees. It's hard enough as it is.
Fair enough.
Okay. Okay. So go ahead, Wally.
People want to know about so officials are graded on every game, if I'm not mistaken. And so what is the recourse when an official has an off game? Like, obviously people want this official fired forever and never to see the light of day ever again. Yeah. Obviously that's not about to happen. I'm just curious to what there is a grading system, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure. Yeah. It's your overall body of work from day one till the end of the season. And one bad call is not going to hurt your status. And one great call is not going to improve your status. As I said, so there's a logger in Toronto who watches there's a guy assigned to every single game. If there's 10 games going on, there's 10 loggers there, each in their own desk, watching that game, making notes on every call. There is a supervisor, an ex-referee who's now on management. They call them officiating managers. They're in the building. Each official probably sees a manager 40 to 50% of all his games. So you come in after the game and you get a detailed debrief on how you perform that night. Then you go back to your hotel room or next morning and we have breakfast or whatever, you pull up your computer and you read the logger's notes on your game. Did I miss this? Did I see that right? At mid-season, Stephen Walkham, who watches a lot of hockey, he meets with all the supervisors. They have input on every official. Every official gets a mid-season, I don't want to call it a rating because I don't tell you where you fall amongst your peers, but you get a mid-season progress, like a report card, I guess. And it details everything you do, your fitness, your communication abilities, your skating, your knowledge of the game, your comportment, all these categories. Tells you what you're doing well and what you need to work on. And then he gets the supervisors together again about a week before playoffs. And when the season ends, out comes the list of who's working playoffs. You got 36 referees, you got 36 linesmen. Only 20 work the playoffs, 20 arrests, 20 linesmen. Almost half the staff go home for the summer. So the repercussions of several great calls or several bad calls means you're probably not working playoffs.
Jax, everybody always asks this one. They want the refs to come out and talk after the game. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a terrible idea. Only because I think it would be adversarial. If you look at, let's say Ottawa plays a bad game and a couple players don't perform well, they come up to the media. The Ottawa media is not going to be confrontational with the player. They're not going to be mad at the player because they have a relationship with these players. They're with them all season.
Yeah.
But if I read some of the media after a poor referee performance, they're mad at that official. That ref cost my team the game or whatever. So it's personal. And there's no PR guy that works for me, the referee, that's going to sort of step in and buffer the comments from the media. And I don't think, in most cases, if take the call the other night, why'd you make that call? Because that's how I saw it. Yeah, but this went on and that one, that's how I saw it. That's not going to satisfy anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
unless he apologized somehow and said, you know what, I'm sorry, I blew the call. But that's not rare. I mean,
true.
True. No one's going to do that.
But I think there is some upside when it comes to, there's sometimes where you'll see a play where it's a rule that nobody's seen before. Something out of the ordinary and everybody's confused.
Yeah.
So if you're watching ESPN, I can explain it for you. But if you're not watching ESPN, then everybody's confused. I don't think it'd be a bad idea to allow a pool reporter to go into the officials' locker room. That is non-confrontational. You're in their home, and you can ask the questions that have been posed by the other reporters. He can get them all down and go back out and share them with other reporters. And I think that's a fair compromise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have a question in the chat from Justin, who just says, there's been a lot of times where officials have missed calls. Do they sometimes try to make up for it?
I think going back to the 60s and 70s, you talk about makeup calls.
Yeah.
These guys are so scrutinized today, going back to what I said, the loggers logging every call they make. So he misses the call or he makes a terrible call. The logger goes, that's a bad call. And then he tries to make up for it. The next call, the logger's going to rate, that's a bad call. So now he's 0 for 2. You have to move on. You can't make a makeup call. You can go over. I've told players, you know what? Based on your reaction and based on what my discussion with my partner during the commercial stoppage, that call I made on you wasn't the strongest call I've ever made. I'm sorry. I promise I'll be better. And you just try and move on. You try and be perfect from then on in. But you can't make makeup calls. It just it makes you look weak. It makes you look bad.
You know what, Jax? It's funny. It brought back when certain referees that I remember that I had a lot of respect for, they would tell you on the ice back when I played, yeah, I missed that. Sorry. Like it shit happens, right?
Yeah.
So just
and then they'll follow up with, and I'm gonna try not to miss any more.
Exactly.
But you're not gonna, I'm not gonna make one up.
Exactly. But I found as a player, I would respect that ref a lot because there was just a quick conversation because you know he's trying to do his best.
I think honesty is the best policy. Don't try and lie to a player. Don't try and gaslight him. If you know you were wrong, just tell him you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know what?
But
I was wrong there.
But I know not to blow smoke up your ass, but I'll tell people when you refed, that's how you refed. Like you communicated with people, and that was a great part of the game. I'm not going to compare it today because I don't play now, but I love that about yourself. Donnie Van Masloven was the same way. Like it was a quick conversation. Like hey, listen, we're all in this together. I'm trying to ref a good game. You're trying to play a good game. Let's work a little bit together here.
Yeah. Maybe that's because Dave made so many bad calls. A lot of calls. Yeah, you got it.
Hey, Jack.
So I was the guy that was always apologizing.
Jack, so at the end of the night, you're going through the good call, bad call. So is it almost like will there be a stat line after? It's like, all right, 8 good calls, 2 bad calls. Like, there's no
scorecard, and most guys, I would think, they already know.
Yeah.
That there's 2 calls I want to confirm that I'm pretty sure I made a damn good call, and there's 1 call I think I missed. And they'll open their computer and they'll look at those 3 calls and then shut the computer. They're not going to watch the full 60 minutes. They don't really have to. But they will go to the sort of the hot topics and either confirm or realize that they were wrong on the ice.
We've kept you longer than we've told you, so I apologize. I have a couple of questions, and I want to get to the Rick Bowness story. So let me.
Yeah, we got to hear the bonus story after. It's so good.
One of the things that, aside from goaltender interference, which nobody ever seems to be able to understand, penalty shots and how they're awarded. How clear cut does it have to be in order to be a penalty shot?
Well, there was a major change probably early in the 2000s. York, you remember penalty shots were never called. Penalty shots were
never.
I think the shootout has sort of the shootout's been a catalyst, I think, to that seeing a guy one-on-one, it's not that big a deal anymore. But we got together. There was nothing changed as a rule. I can remember being at training camp one year, and I forget what year it was, and we just talked about, it was like an open floor discussion on penalty shots. And the overall consensus in the room was the old school hockey, you never call penalty shots, but there are so many penalties where we call tripping or hooking, what should be a penalty shot. And everybody kind of agreed. Everybody said, you know what? We really do need to call more penalty shots. And, the boss was the manager. I don't remember who the management was at that time. They said, if that's the way you guys feel, call the rule the way it's written. And we went out, and the first year we had, I think, a lot of penalty shots, and then it came back down. And now, guys, as a referee, and you're just using your judgment. Did he get his scoring chance taken away? Was it from behind? He might have got a shot off. Did he get as good a shot off as he would have had if he wasn't fouled? The answer is no, you call a penalty shot. And they're just accepted now. They weren't accepted in the past. I mean, people lose their mind when you call the penalty shot. And now it's just routine, and it should be routine. If you take away a guy's scoring chance from behind, call a penalty shot.
Fair enough. Okay. Yorkie, do you have anything before we get to the stories? Because
you got one more?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, we're all human. So when you've made a bad call, or have there been calls that kept you up at night?
Yeah, I think the reason I get these wrinkles and gray hair is because I lost 4 years of sleep cumulatively staring at the ceiling on some of my calls. But yeah, when you make a bad call or you miss a call, I tell you what, to a man, you don't go out and, live it up and just say, hey, nothing happened. No, you go back to your room. You're probably not leaving your hotel room, and you're replaying that over and over in your head all night long, and you're beating yourself up. Like I said, guys want to be perfect, and you seldom ever achieve it, but you want to be perfect. And an impactful missed call will keep you awake at night. And the worst part is, if it's your last game of a road trip, it'll keep you awake until your next game. You might not sleep for a week. So the best thing to do is have a game the next night and go out and nail it, and then
who would be the worst? Sorry, who would be the worst coach to deal with if a call is, or when a call is missed?
Pretty much every single one of them. Yeah. No, I mean, I never really had issues with any coaches. I think, you can ask them; they might have had issues with me. But as Yorkie said, my style was more of one of trying to de-escalate versus confrontational. So if I was wrong, I would go tell them, and we move on.
So, which will lead me into your Rick Bowness story. Can you? You just tell us.
Well, you were asking earlier off air about just interactions at the bench and some funny things. There's a lot of funny things that are said, but one of the funniest things was early in my career, and I have so much respect for Rick Bowness. He's just such a class act, such a good guy. Everywhere he's gone, treats the refs well. And he was in the American Hockey League, and it was a game in Fredericton, a Sunday afternoon game. So, I think they'd lost Friday, Saturday, and now they're playing Sunday afternoon. And the very first shift of the game, the other Fredericton gets a breakaway, and his player dives and trips the guy from behind. And this is still back in the early 90s. I didn't call a penalty shot. I called the trip. Today, it would have definitely been a penalty shot.
Yeah.
But it's a blatant trip. Probably should be a penalty shot. And Rick loses his mind. He is screaming. He's banging the boards with a stick and everything. And I'm saying to myself, I don't know what he's so mad about. Like, maybe if I'd called the penalty shot, he'd be mad that I didn't just call tripping. But I only called tripping. So I said, I'm going to take care of this right away. We're 45 seconds into the game. So I go bolting right across the ice at Rick, and he's behind the bench. Now he runs down to the center ice door, opens the door, and stands in the doorway with his toes hanging over the ice. Now he's got his whole team behind him. So he's projecting his voice away from his team. And he's got his arms up in the air. As I get close, he's yelling at me. He's going, Dave, I'm so sorry. I'm not yelling at you. And he's pointing at me. He goes, I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at my guys behind me here because I'm so bleeping mad at them. We've just lost 2 in a row. They have no emotion. I'm the only one showing emotion in this team. And I promise I won't yell at you again tonight. And he turned to slam the door, and he walked back behind the bench with his arms crossed. And it's all I could do to not laugh. I'm just smiling, and I just skidded away. But, and that's what I tell young referees. Sometimes when you get yelled at by a player, by a coach, you need to sometimes dig a little deeper what their motivation is for yelling at you. You can't take everything personal. Because, you've been around the game, both of you, for so long. You know how much obscenity and profanity goes on out there in the ice. Guys are mad. They're yelling. Only a small portion of that is directed truly at you as a person. The rest is just blowing off steam, and they're frustrated. So sometimes you just got to be let it roll off your back.
That's so good. All right, Dave. Yorkie, I'm going to let him go unless you've got something else.
No, we've, Jax, that was great. Really appreciate you coming on and breaking down some of those plays for us. I love that Bowness story too. It's so good.
You let me off easy. You were going to ask me about headshots, but we'll do that another time.
Wow. Listen, well, the Reeves, I think the Reeves is, it's pretty cut and dry, isn't it? The Reeves. Everyone's been talking about it. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, the overall percentage of contact was about 95% head. So that's what the rule is there for. The term they use in the rule book is he picked the head, which is what he did. I don't think, Revo was on the ice when I was on the ice. I don't think he's a malicious guy. I don't think his intent was to blow the guy's head up. I think he chose a poor angle of attack. He meant to hit the body, but he didn't get the body. He got all head. And people hark back to last year in the playoffs when Panarin lit up Oshie, got him right in the chin, I think. But that was part of an overall body hit, right through the middle. He didn't explode up. He didn't pick the head. Poor angle. It was straight through the body. He was higher than Oshie was, and the head there was 10% of the overall contact. The rest of the body was the other 90%. So that's how they look at it. There's no, I hear people talking initial point of contact. There's no such thing as initial point of contact. That used to be in the rule book. We got rid of it 15 years ago. Timing doesn't matter. If you hit the head first, you picture a guy that's leaning forward with the puck. If a guy Trouba takes the head first and then goes through the body, the fact he got the head first doesn't matter. It's how much of the head was contacted. If it was a small percentage of the overall body and you don't pick the head, it's probably a legal hit. Otherwise, big guys could never hit small guys.
It's crazy. Do you know what's lost in all this? Do you know whose fault this actually was in this whole play? I watched it 20 times. What was Edmonton's goalie doing? Like, tell your defenseman that there's a big rig that's coming in. Like, just say, hey, heads up. Like, nobody's talking to Darnell Nurse on that play.
Well, it goes back to the beginning of this podcast where you said you had to know who was on the ice and have your antenna up.
Oh, like, and you look, he's winding it up too. And I go back and watch it again, guys. Anybody that's listening, the puck actually gets stuck against the boards. So Nurse has a tough time originally picking it off the boards, and then it rolls. And then by that time, he's cutting the net, and he's had his head down because of that. And then he doesn't. Probably should have just stopped behind the net, and nothing bad would have happened. But it's beyond me why nobody yelled and said, "Heads up, heads up."
Yeah. Quickly on those plays when it's a match or any of that, do you have to do anything with the game sheet afterwards? Is there a write-up that you have to send to the league, or do they? Yeah, okay. I was just curious.
No, there's a form. You go to your computer, you fill it out, and it goes. You send it off. You give your synopsis of what happened, what you assessed, anything else that happened out of the ordinary during that point, and then you hit send, and it goes to Mr. Bettman. Probably goes to Bill Daly. Goes to player safety. Goes to Colin Campbell, Stephen Walker.
The Toronto Maple Leafs, because although the refs are in the Toronto Maple Leafs pocket,
it goes to everybody in management pretty much. It probably goes to the Players Association, so they have a copy of the report. I'm not obviously sure about that, but it goes. We were always told, make sure you, much like a police officer writing up a report, make sure you state only the facts, no opinions, and make sure you're very thorough on what you do.
Is there any building that tried to butter up officials more than others so they would get calls or not get calls, if you will? Did you have like warm blankets? Did you have extra food?
I tell you what, there were definitely the haves and have-nots of NHL arenas. But it never seemed that the haves or the haves-nots, the officiating was never any different. It was, I'll tell you a funny story on that if you got time.
I got all the time in the world for you.
I'm in Calgary one night with another referee, and we go into a restaurant, and the Leafs are playing in Calgary. Next night, we're doing the game, and Ty Domi's in there. And I know Ty well. My brother-in-law used to be the trainer of the Maple Leafs, and so he's married to my sister. She knows Ty. Ty and I always got along, and Ty's a great guy. And he gets up about halfway through dinner with a couple of teammates. They come over and say, really just small talk for 2 minutes, and they leave. And we stay for about another hour, and we finally go to close out our bill, and the waitress says, no, the guy you were talking to took care of your bill when he left. So, very appreciative, but it's kind of awkward, we're refereeing the game the next night. So
he's just messing with you.
So we're skating around, right before the game, and I slide up to Ty and I go, "Hey, that was really kind of you last night, picking up the tab." He goes, "Oh, anytime, man. You guys have a hard job." And then just sort of like kidding around, I go, "But it's not going to get you any favors." He was almost offended. He goes, "I know that." Well, so I threw out of the game about 2 minutes later. See you, Ty.
Thanks for dinner.
Yeah, and he made some kind of like sarcastic comment about dinner or something like that. But he knew. He knew he deserved to get thrown out. But yeah, that just goes to show, like, you got a job to do on the ice. It's like the Looney Tunes. There, you got the sheepdog, and you got the sheep and all that. They're just doing their job.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was like the sheepdog and the coyote. Good morning, Sam.
Yeah.
Good morning, Ralph.
Exactly.
Punch in on the clock. Oh, it's so good. Hey, Jax, thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, guys.
Thanks,
fun.
man.
See ya.
Yeah, that was great.
Dave
Great
Jackson,
stuff.
who's the NHL rules official for ESPN.
Yeah.
And